The desert was too quiet that morning. Not the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. But the kind that comes before a decision that changes a life forever. My name ain't important. But people around those parts used to call me Harlan Wade, rancher, widower, a man who stayed out of other folks' business. Because in the West, every time I got involved, someone died. That's why, when I rode across that wide-open stretch of sunburned land, I almost kept my eyes forward, almost, when I saw something that didn't belong in that silence. A shape. Small. Still. Surrounded by 4 wooden posts hammered into the earth. My horse, Bandit, snorted and slowed. Even he could feel it. As I approached, the shape turned into a person. A young woman, maybe 19, maybe 20, tied spread eagle to each post with coarse rope cutting at her wrists and ankles. She wore a torn white crop top, dusted with sand, and brown fringed shorts that looked more like survival gear than fashion. Her hair was long, black, and tangled. Apache style. Her chest rose weakly. So she was alive. But barely. I dropped from my saddle. Boots crunching the dry grass. The sun beating down on her skin like it wanted to finish what someone else had started. Her lips parted. And she whispered it. A voice hoarse, cracking, full of a fear that didn't belong to a girl her age. Please. I am begging you, untie it. I froze. Because I'd heard those exact words before. Years ago. From someone I failed to save. That memory hit like a bullet. But the girl wasn't done. With what little strength she had, she lifted her head, just enough for her eyes to meet mine. Those eyes weren't pleading. They were warning. I looked down at the ropes again. 4 posts. 4 knots. A setup I recognized, but didn't want to believe. This wasn't punishment. This wasn't bandit cruelty. This wasn't even a message. This was Apache tradition, the kind reserved for someone believed to carry a curse or a danger. A ritual meant to bind something. Something the tribe feared. That's when she said, barely breathing. If you cut the ropes, you break the tradition. You take the burden. Not me. My hand hovered over the knife at my belt. I felt the wind shift. Even the desert was waiting to see what I'd do. Bandit stomped nervously behind me. And somewhere far away, or maybe too close, I thought I heard chanting carried on the wind. Or maybe it was just my guilt, coming back to haunt me. The girl swallowed hard, her voice dropping into a whisper that carried more weight than a scream. Please, don't make me die out here for something I didn't choose. And that's when I realized something that sent a shiver straight through my spine. She wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of what would happen if she lived. I gripped the knife. Paused. And with one deep breath. I broke tradition. The first rope snapped. The desert exhaled. And I swear I felt the ground tremble. The snap of that first rope echoed across the desert like a gunshot fired at God himself. For a moment, nothing moved. No wind. No animals. No breath. Just me, the girl, and a silence thick enough to choke on. I knelt beside her, my shadow falling across her sunburned skin, trying to shield what little life remained in her. She blinked slowly, the way a person does when they're fighting sleep that could turn permanent. Stay with me, I muttered. Just hold on. She didn't answer with words. Her eyes drifted to the other ropes, almost flinching at the sight. Not because they hurt. But because she feared what would happen when they were gone. I didn't understand it yet. But fear that deep, that old, doesn't come from nothing. I moved to the rope binding her left arm. The fibers were coarse, woven in a way I'd only seen a handful of times, in places where tradition ran older than the country itself. Apache binding rope. Not for prisoners. Not for criminals. For containment. My hand hesitated again. Girl, I said under my breath, what did they think you were? Her voice cracked. Barely a sound. They think I carry a shadow. A shadow? That didn't explain anything. And at the same time, it explained too much. Before I could ask more, something shifted behind me. Bandit's ears shot up. His hooves scraped the dirt. He made the low, uneasy sound horses only make when something unseen is moving nearby. I turned fast, scanning the horizon. Nothing. Just dry grass, distant hills, and heat shimmer. But the silence had changed. Something was out there. Watching us. Waiting. The girl's voice trembled. Please, finish it. Before they come back. Who? I asked. Your people. Her eyes softened, not with fear, but with sorrow. They're not my people anymore. Not after this. There was a story buried in those words. A long one. A painful one. One I suspected she'd never wanted to tell anyone. I cut the second rope. She gasped, not in relief, but in dread. As if something invisible had just been set loose. Sweat trickled down my back. The sun beat down harder. Bandit pawed at the sand, nostrils flaring. I had the strange feeling that the desert itself didn't agree with what I was doing. Before I reached the third rope, the girl forced out the words. You don't know what you're doing. Rancher. You don't know what they saw. What did they see? I asked. She turned her head toward me, the movement slow, brittle, like it hurt her just to remember. Her voice was a whisper carried by the wind. They saw me wake up without a heartbeat. A chill slid down my spine. It didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. But her eyes weren't lying. Girl, are you telling me? Yes, she breathed. I died. I know I died. And something followed me back. My throat tightened. I'd heard superstitions, stories, warnings, but nothing like that. Is that why they tied you out here? She nodded weakly. They wanted the sun to burn the shadow out of me. To cleanse me. Or kill me again. My hand tightened around the knife. I didn't believe in curses. I didn't believe in ghosts. But the West didn't care what a man believed. The West made its own rules. I sliced the third rope. Her arm fell limp. But the air around us felt heavier, as if the world was holding its breath again. I could feel sweat cooling on my skin. The temperature dropping, just slightly. Just enough for instinct to take notice. Girl, I murmured, tell me your name. She swallowed. Chinua. A name with weight. A name with history. All right, Chinua, I said, I'm gonna get you out of here. Whatever you're carrying, whatever they think you brought back, it's not staying in this desert. Her voice broke. You don't understand. It doesn't want to stay here. It wants something new, someone new. Her eyes fixed on me. And the fear inside them wasn't for her. It was for me. Rancher, once you cut the last rope, you're choosing to take it. My pulse kicked hard. Bandit let out a sharp, terrified whinny. A gust of wind blew across the plain, dry grass bending all at once, like something was passing through it at impossible speed. Coming closer. I looked down at the final rope around her ankle. Cutting it felt like stepping off a cliff. But leaving her out here, tied, alone, felt like something I'd never forgive myself for. I tightened my grip on the knife. Whatever comes, I said, we face it together. Chinua shut her eyes, not in fear, but in acceptance. And with one last breath, I cut the final rope. The desert changed. The heat vanished. The wind stopped. And the light, for a split second, dimmed, like the sun had blinked. I stood up fast, backing away as Chinua curled in on herself, gasping like someone surfacing from deep underwater. Then, off in the distance, a figure appeared on the ridge. Still. Tall. Watching. Not Apache. Not human. Not completely. Chinua's voice cracked. It followed me back. I reached for my revolver. And the shadow on the ridge began to move. The figure on the ridge didn't move like a man. Didn't shift weight. Didn't breathe. Didn't cast a shadow of its own. It just stood there, black against the gold horizon, shaped vaguely like a person only because our minds refused to accept anything else. Chinua dragged herself up to her elbows, trembling. It found me again, she whispered. I thought the ropes would keep it away until sunrise. But you cut them. Her voice cracked. And now it's free to choose. Choose what? I asked, my hand hovering near my revolver. Chinua shook her head, eyes glassy with terror. Who to follow next? The wind carried a low hum across the plains, like a choir mourning out of tune. I felt the hair rise on my arms. Bandit reared suddenly, nearly snapping his reins, desperate to flee. Horses know death when they smell it. They know worse things too. Stay put, boy, I muttered, though I didn't believe the lie myself. The figure on the ridge tilted its head, slow, deliberate, like it was studying us. Or deciding. I took a step in front of Chinua. I'm getting you on that horse. We're riding out. No. Her hand shot out and grabbed my boot with surprising strength. You can't outrun it. It follows breath, heartbeat, warmth. Her eyes fell to the sand, unfocused. It follows whatever came back with me. A shiver clawed up my spine. You said you died, I murmured. How? She hesitated. Not because she didn't remember, but because remembering hurt. Finally. My village. A fever. It took us one by one. Elders called it a cleansing, but it wasn't. It was hunger. The shadow on the ridge took a single step forward. No sound. No dust. Just movement. Chinua's voice trembled. The medicine woman told us stories, of a spirit that devours the light inside a person but leaves the body walking for one more night. A spirit that chooses one to bring it back. She swallowed. I was its choice. Something cold settled into my stomach. You're telling me that thing, I pointed toward the ridge, is what killed your village? Not killed. Her eyes filled with dread. Emptied. The wind pushed a swirl of dust between us and the ridge, and for a split second, the figure disappeared. Not gone. Just somewhere else. Close. I lifted my revolver, scanning every direction. This wasn't a fight a bullet could win. But a gun in hand still made a man feel less like prey. Chinua crawled to her knees, weak but determined. The bind ritual isn't meant to hurt, she whispered. It's meant to confuse it. To trap the spirit in a crossroads, so it can't tell which life to follow. So they tied you down like that? She nodded, eyes clouding. The posts form the corners of the world. North, south, east, west. As long as I was fixed between them, the spirit was bound to me, not to anyone else. My mouth went dry. And now that I cut you loose, it can follow you, or me, or both. I cursed under my breath. The desert suddenly shifted. The color changed, just slightly, like the world was being washed with a thin layer of ash. What does it want? I asked, my voice low. Chinua's answer came like a confession. A body. A warm one. So it can stay. So it can grow. Before I could speak, Bandit screamed, rearing violently, eyes wide with terror. The saddle straps jolted. Chinua grabbed my arm. It's here. A flicker appeared behind us. Like heat distortion. Like breath in the air where there shouldn't be any. I spun, gun raised. But there was nothing. Then. A whisper slid across the back of my neck. Hararlan. The sound froze my blood. Chinua's eyes widened. You didn't tell me your name. I hadn't. I swallowed hard. The figure reappeared, not on the ridge now, but halfway across the plain, moving closer, faster, without footsteps. Harlan, Chinua whispered. It knows you. It wants you. Why me? Because you cut the ropes. You invited it into your life. The air wavered again, closer. Almost behind me. Chinua grabbed my shirt with both hands, panic shattering her voice. Harlan, if it takes you, it takes everything. The land. The animals. The people. The West itself doesn't survive a spirit like this wearing a man's skin. I holstered my gun, useless, and lifted her onto her feet, supporting her weight. We're leaving. Now. Chinua struggled weakly, shaking her head. You can't run from a shadow, she whispered. It follows where the light goes. Then we ride at night, I said. Saddle up. I turned to grab Bandit's reins. But the horse wasn't looking at me. He was staring at something behind me. Eyes wide. Breath trembling. I turned. And the figure stood just 30 paces away now. Clearer. Taller. More human-shaped, but wrong. Like someone remembering what a person looked like instead of being one. A black hollow where a face should be. A voice made of many whispers. Harlan Wade. Chinua clutched my arm. I'm sorry, she breathed. I never meant for an innocent man to be chosen. Chosen. The word hit me like a hammer. The shade lifted its head, as if considering me. And then. It took another step. A single, silent, deliberate step. And the ground beneath us shivered. The desert was no longer watching. It was warning. The spirit stood so close now that I could feel the temperature drop around my ribs. Not cold like winter. Cold like a grave that never learned to warm up. My hand found Chinua's waist, steadying her as she struggled to stand. Her legs shook like a newborn foal's. Her breath came short, fast. But she forced her gaze up anyway. Because she knew the thing better than I ever could. It wants to take him, she whispered, her voice raw. It wants a man who already carries darkness. The spirit tilted its head again, that slow, rattling movement that didn't belong to anything living. Heat pulled away from the sand. Grass stiffened. Even the sunlight dimmed a shade more. Why me? I asked again, louder this time. Chinua's hand tightened around my shirt, as if she feared the answer as much as I did. The spirit's whisper slithered across the air. You, lost, someone. My jaw clenched. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Chinua turned to me, eyes soft, almost apologetic. It chooses people with wounds, she murmured. It feeds on grief the way coyotes feed on bone. The spirit drifted a half-step closer, the edges of its shape blurring like smoke. Images flickered at the corner of my mind, images I hadn't seen in years. A porch. A scream. A hand slipping from mine. A grave with no flowers. My breathing turned heavy. You stay out of my head, I growled. The spirit's hollow face shifted, almost smiling. I never left. A violent tremor tore through Chinua. Harlan, she rasped, its shadow touched you once. Her words struck like lightning. How do you know that? You carry a mark, you don't see it, but I do. She pointed to my chest, just above my heart. A bruise under your skin. Dark and old. What kind of mark? The kind only death leaves. Not your death, someone else's. Someone you feel responsible for. The world twisted slightly, like the desert tilted around us. Bandit whinnied and reared again, nearly snapping the reins off the saddle. The spirit spoke. You invited me the night she died. When you begged for her to stay. Even after her breath stopped. My blood turned to ice. My throat locked. I hadn't spoken of that night to a soul. Not to a friend. Not to a passerby. But I remembered it. Clear as if it were happening all over again. My wife, Mara, cold in my arms. My mouth against her hair. My voice breaking. Please, don't leave me. Please. The spirit took another step. Chinua grabbed my hand, anchoring me. Don't listen to it, she urged. It twists memories. Turns guilt into a door. But the spirit wasn't twisting anything. It was repeating the truth. You asked for a shadow to follow you, it hissed. I answered. My breath shook. Girl, I muttered, you said you died. You said it chose you. Chinua nodded. It did. For a moment. But it never settled in me. Why not? Her eyes glistened. Because my heart stopped. A spirit can't anchor to an empty body. It tried, but when I came back. I came back alone. And the ropes? They kept it confused. Kept it thinking I was still dead and still alive at the same time. A whisper of wind circled us, spiraling dust in tight circles. The spirit drifted sideways, less like a human and more like a shiver slipping across the earth. Harlan Wade. It spoke my name like a prayer. Or a claim. What does it want with me now? I forced out. Chinua squeezed my hand so hard her nails drew blood. It wants to finish what it started with her. It wants the life you begged for. It wants to wear your grief like a skin. My pulse thundered. And if it takes me? Then it never dies, she whispered. The word never felt heavier in her voice. The spirit raised a hand, long, blurred, shapeless, and pointed directly at my chest. My breath locked. It felt like the air got trapped inside my lungs. Then. A flash. Not light. Memory. My wife's final breath. Her lips turning blue. My tears hitting her cheek. My whisper again. Stay. My knees buckled. Chinua held me up, barely, her small frame trembling under the weight of both of us. Harlan, she said firmly, look at me. I forced my gaze away from the spirit. Its shape blurred harder. The desert dimmed darker. Everything felt like dying. Harlan, she repeated, voice grounding, I know how this spirit works. If you let it feed on guilt, it will shape itself from that pain. You have to fight it. How? You don't fight with strength, Chinua whispered. You fight with truth. I laughed bitterly. Truth don't help a man in the West. It helps against this, she insisted. Behind us, the spirit stretched taller, towering, its form widening into something that looked almost like ribs. Its voice rolled across the plain like a storm. Let me in. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. I wanted to collapse. But Chinua held my face in her hands, forcing my eyes to hers. You didn't kill your wife, she whispered. The words hit me like a rifle but. Chinua continued, voice breaking. She died because the fever took her. The same fever that killed me once. You begged for her to stay, because you're human. Because you loved her. That is not a sin the spirit can claim. I swallowed hard, the truth peeling against the grief I'd carried for years. The spirit shrieked, sound bending, unnatural, furious. Chinua pressed closer. It's weakened, she said. Your guilt was the door. Close it, and the spirit loses its claim. How? I asked again, voice shaking. You accept what happened, she whispered. You forgive yourself. The spirit lunged. Not walking. Not running. Just appearing closer, too close, reaching out with that shapeless arm. Chinua shoved me aside, stepping between us with a courage I didn't understand. Her voice rose, strong, defiant. He does not belong to you. The spirit froze. Chinua's breath trembled, but she didn't back down. He made a choice when he cut the ropes, she said. But I made a choice too. I stared at her, stunned. What choice? She turned her head, looking at me, eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before. Something like resolve. I choose to carry the shadow with you. The desert roared. The spirit convulsed. The wind whipped. The ground shook. And just like that, the final decision fell on both of us. The wind howled so violently that the desert sounded alive. Breathing, growling, judging. Chinua stood in front of me, one arm braced, her small frame defiant against something that wasn't flesh, wasn't wind, wasn't even death. The spirit twisted violently, its shape flickering between forms. A tall figure. A small child. A woman with long hair. A body with no face. It changed based on what it consumed, fear, guilt, desperation. But Chinua wasn't feeding it anymore. She was resisting. Her voice cut through the storm. You cannot have him. Not while I still breathe. The spirit lunged. Not physically. But like a shadow folding itself into another shadow. It collided with her. And for a moment, the whole desert went silent. Like the sun forgot to shine. Like time forgot to move. I reached instinctively. Chinua. She dropped to her knees. Her fingers dug into the sand. Her hair whipped around her face. Her eyes were shut tight as if she were wrestling something inside her chest. And then, her back arched violently. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. The spirit's darkness seeped along her spine, rising like black veins, pulsing with every heartbeat. I grabbed her shoulders. What are you doing? My voice cracked. Don't take it into you. Don't. Her eyes snapped open. And they were not black. Not empty. Not lost. They were bright gold. Burning with something ancient. Something powerful. She rasped through clenched teeth. I'm not taking it in. Her body trembled harder. I'm holding it back. The spirit shrieked inside her. A sound like metal scraping bone. Chinua slammed her fist into the ground as if anchoring herself to the earth. Harlan, listen to me. Her voice was fading. You must finish what they started. What do I do? Tie me. My blood went cold. No. I'm not leaving you bound again. She shook her head violently. Not the old way. The new way. Her trembling fingers raked lines into the sand. For symbols, one at each corner around her. West. North. South. East. But these weren't Apache markings. They were older. Sharper. What are these? I asked. Chinua swallowed. My grandmother taught me, only once. She said the bind ritual could be changed. Not to trap a living host. She gasped as dark smoke curled up her throat. But to trap the spirit itself. I understood. This wasn't a ritual for saving her. This was a ritual for ending it. Forever. Chinua looked up at me, pain twisting her features but her voice clear. Place your hands on the posts. All four. Not to bind me. But to bind the shadow. You're the only one it recognized. Only you can close the door. Her body shook violently. The spirit was trying to rip free. I didn't think. Didn't hesitate. I ran to the first post. The wooden beam that once held her prisoner. And slammed my palm against it. A shock ran up my arm. I grit my teeth and moved to the next one. Then the third. Then the fourth. As my hands pressed onto the last post, the wind stopped. Just stopped. Everything became silent again. A silence so complete, it rang in my ears. Chinua lifted her face toward me, tears running down her cheeks. Now, say its name. I froze. I don't know its name. She tried to speak, but blood, dark, almost black, ran from the corner of her mouth. Her voice cracked. You do. Harlan. You called it once. When you begged the night to give her back. My heart stopped. The memory surged. My wife's final breath. My voice whispering through tears. Stay with me, please. And then. The name I had whispered that night. The name I thought was just grief spilling out. But it wasn't grief. It was calling something. My throat tightened. My voice trembled. I spoke it. I spoke its true name. The desert trembled. The sky darkened. Chinua arched backward. The shadow ripping out of her chest like smoke from a burning house. It shrieked. It twisted. It writhed. It tried to return to me. Tried to crawl back through the wound of my old grief. But the posts held. The symbols glowed. The ritual sealed. The spirit slammed into an invisible wall and exploded in a burst of black dust. Like a star collapsing. And then. It was gone. Completely. Not defeated. Erased. Chinua collapsed onto her side. I ran to her, falling to my knees. Chinua. Hey. Stay with me. Her eyes fluttered. For a moment, she smiled weakly. You did it. Harlan Wade. You closed the door. I wiped dirt from her cheek, my hands shaking. You saved me first. She coughed, breath weak. You broke tradition. For a stranger. Her hand found mine. That means I'm not a stranger anymore. Her voice faded. Her eyes closed. I gathered her into my arms. Holding her like I once held another life I couldn't save. But this time. Her chest rose. Slow. Weak. But alive. She wasn't dying. She was resting. I pulled her close, whispering. You're not carrying the shadow anymore. She whispered back, barely audible. Neither are you. The desert finally breathed again. The sunlight warmed. Bandit inched forward and nudged my shoulder. As if checking whether the world returned to normal. I stood up slowly, Chinua in my arms. And for the first time in years. I felt light. Not empty. Not haunted. Light. As we walked away from the 4 posts, Chinua murmured. Harlan, what now? I looked out at the horizon. Golden, endless, waiting. We ride, I said softly. And whatever follows next. We face it together. Behind us, the posts stood still. No shadow returned. No whisper. No echo. Just silence. The kind that comes not before death. But after victory.